Let's explore the Catoctin Furnace today. Recently, we spent some time hiking in the Catoctin Mountain Park, and while we were there, we hiked the charcoal trail. That trail showed us the highly intensive process of making charcoal. This was prevalent in the area because of some iron furnaces. It was an interesting trail, and it sparked our interest in returning to the Catoctin Furnace, which is a site that we had discovered only 2 months earlier on accident. As an added bonus, this time the museum was open. The Catoctin Furnace was in blast as early as 1776, and we know that it provided munitions to George Washington during the Revolutionary War. It was in operation until 1903. The grounds are well maintained and, where applicable, beautifully restored. The Free Museum is located in one of the restored ironworkers' homes, and it has a very nice collection of items that were used at the ironworks, as well as products created at the ironworks. The museum has reconstructed the casting shed around the furnace, and as you walk around, you can only imagine the blood, sweat, and tears that were shed in this area, as this hot work was accomplished at this site. The Museum and Historical Society for this complex has a beautifully restored Colliers Log Cabin. This is actually where the workers lived. This particular house actually held 2 families, and we were told that many times the families were taking in boarders and single workers. This house was not open the day that we visited, but we were able to peer in the windows to see what was inside. Behind the Colliers house, they have created a historic kitchen garden. The garden was in full swing and producing vegetables while we were visiting. And of course, it also attracted a gorgeous butterfly. The Forgemans House is another building that has been restored by the Museum and Historical Society. We were advised at the museum that we could peer into the windows, so we did. But the pamphlets for this museum indicate that the building has been restored as a rental unit for visitors to the area. There are sadly some historical buildings that are not salvageable, and they lay in ruins. One of these is the Iron Master's Mansion. The Iron Master's Mansion sits on a hill overlooking the whole complex, and this was so that the Iron Master could actually still see everything happening in the complex when he was at home. When you look at the ruins, it is very obvious to see how grand this house was. It was so big in comparison to that small log cabin that actually housed 2 families. There is an interpretive trail that leads from the actual furnace to the site of an African American graveyard. It is short, and it is well marked with signs that gave more history of the area, and they talk about the graveyard and how they found out that this was a graveyard and the efforts that they made to learn of the inhabitants of the cemetery. Another trail leads from this historical complex to the nearby state park of Cunningham Falls. The trail was too wet, and we were not prepared to hike this day, but I have hiked it before, and it crosses over streams and meanders through the woods, and it's a nice little walk. This historical complex is definitely worth the time to stop. You can expect to spend maybe an hour or 2, And that's if you walk every path and inspect everything there is to offer. The area surrounding it is actually full of history also. Across the street from the museum, there is an old general store that I was told closed in the 1960s, and it still had signs on the front of it. It was just neat. Definitely, if you're in the area, make a stop. And in the meantime, just get out and explore our world. No excuses.